Heads up, Element is in early access, so nothing shown here is final. We may check this one out later on, and everything is subject to change. The real-time strategy genre is a difficult one for a lot of people to get into, myself included. I was a fan of Age of Empires growing up, and to this day, I'm a fan of both Darwinia and Multiwinia. For the most part, however, RTS games are too fast and convoluted for me to get into. Flightless's Element fixes a good number of my complaints while not oversimplifying the genre, allowing things to be easy to get into while maintaining a skill curve and a fast pace. In Element, Earth's environment is no longer hospitable to the human race. As a result, they've taken to the stars, set out on a journey through the galaxy to find a new home. You take control of a colony ship, and amidst your planet hopping, you must take excursions to the surfaces of different worlds in order to harvest valuable elements from underneath their surfaces. Things aren't as easy as they sound, though. Each planet has a rival conglomerate of people vying for the very same resources that you need to harvest. It's up to the player to place structures of varying purposes on the land or in the sea and air to gather resources, as well as some other structures to either attack your enemies or defend your own expansions. The big contributor to Element's simplicity is the way expansion works. There are only 3 different kinds of structures and then 2 non-structures that you can use on demand. Each structure or usable has 3 different levels of effectiveness that you can choose to create them at, with higher levels costing more resources to create and taking up additional building slots. The buildables are pretty easy to remember. The resource option builds things that gather resources. Placing these anywhere will constantly pull in more resources for you to build with, or placing them on specific points will gather the element that you need. The attack option builds things that fire missiles on enemy structures. Defend will build structures that shoot down enemy missiles. The 2 non-structures, missile and repair, will either send a direct missile to a targeted structure or repair a targeted structure, respectively. The second part of the building system is where things get a little more interesting. As I mentioned earlier, you can place structures on land or in the air or water. It's a good idea to keep your placements varied, as there's a sort of rock, paper, scissors system at work. Structures in the air will beat those on the ground, structures on the ground will beat those in the water, and structures in the water will beat those in the air. The only difference between these placements is that the structures in the air will also orbit the planet that you're on, meaning that attacking satellites or defensive units can be on the move as they attack or defend. There's also a limit to how many buildings you can have in a single round, and you can't deconstruct something once it's built, so being careful with your structures and choosing wisely is very important. The goal of each round in Element is not only to eliminate your enemy, but also to gather at least a bare minimum amount of whatever element is found within whatever planet you're harvesting. And if you wipe out your enemy before gathering enough resources, then the attempt is actually a failure. This creates a really interesting dynamic that has the player having to choose between defense or aggression early on, in addition to prioritizing what kinds of structures to build. There are a few different ways to play each planet, and the skirmish mode adds some longevity to the game despite it always being the same planet. As a side note, there is a really good opportunity here for the skirmish mode to take place on randomly generated worlds. Maybe you could even have the ability to save a world that you get randomly to play it later. Rounds themselves are generally over fairly quick, lasting about 5 minutes on average. This is, of course, due to how quickly you can build structures and gather resources. The pacing ends up very quickly snowballing in individual games, and if you don't pay enough attention to your structures and where your enemy is developing, then you'll quickly end up under their boots with no real way to climb out, and then you'll lose. While the mechanics are easy to understand, the later levels become quite intense and require a lot of skill and quick thinking in order to win, and I like that. I'm pretty confident that an online play mode would work very well in Element. Even if I were only able to play with friends, I'm sure it would be awesome. Maybe you could choose from a number of developer-made planets specifically engineered for multiplayer. Maybe you could even make your own planets or play on a randomly generated one with your friends. You could even do more than just 2 players, have teams, the works. There's really just so much potential here for a really fun multiplayer game that just thinking about it is really exciting. Right now, you can get Element on Steam for about $11, and the developers have plans to bring it to both Android and iOS devices in the future, and I definitely plan on checking this one out on my phone when it's available. If you like the idea of a simple but quick RTS game, then this is one for you. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Indie Bytes. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please remember to leave a like and subscribe for more. If you have any indie games that I should check out, then please shoot them my way. You can leave a comment down below, or you can drop me a line on Twitter. My handle's @forkh, or you can shoot me an email at fork4h@gmail.com. I'll see you next time. Bye!